Hey guys, it's Jessica, and today we are going to talk about our perfect eyeshadow palettes. I say our because I'm going to share with you what my perfect eyeshadow palette is. I'm going to put it on, but I just want to kind of talk about the topic of a perfect eyeshadow palette because, you know, all of us on YouTube, we like to pinpoint and nitpick everything because it's our job to, right? Like if I'm trying out in a given year 30 different palettes, and honestly that number might be low, but let's say I'm trying out 30 palettes, well, depending on what my needs and likes are, that's going to completely sway the kind of a palette I'm going to like. Now, I try to keep as clear of a head when I'm reviewing and at least say to you guys, I like neutrals, therefore this palette's not my cup of tea, but let's do a look with it anyway. And I can tell you about how the shadow wears and the quality of it, how it swatches versus how it blends, etc. But we always have to keep that in mind with any YouTuber or any blogger, whatever that you're watching, that they're obviously going to be somewhat biased based on what they like, no matter how much we try not to be. You know what I mean? We're human. So I figured it would just be kind of fun to really share with you my ideal palette. I've created it. I used a certain brand. I'll share that with you. It's not sponsored. I just was at Sephora and decided to do this. But I want to also give you alternatives because you don't have to use this brand. This is just the one I'm using for this particular video. For you to be able to create the perfect palette, hold on, I've got a lash that is like really getting in my eye there. Oh, it's tickling. It's not even like itching, it's tickling. For an eyeshadow palette to be perfect for you, you can think about like, okay, what do I always end up doing on my eyes? No matter what palette I have, do I always end up putting a shimmer on my lid? Is it always a light shimmer? What do I like to put in my crease? Do I like to set my primer with like a skin toned color, with like a matte skin tone? Do I like to always use a darker brown in the outer corner? Do I always use a matte black? Do I like to line my eyes with the dark shadow color, or is that not something I do? What colors do I like to put on my lower lash line if I like to do that? So these were all swimming in my head as I was picking out shadows. So let me tell you about the palette I created, and then I want to tell you about more affordable options because this is not an affordable option. I just wanted to try it. So these came out a while ago. Makeup Forever sells their kind of palette where you can put magnetized little pans of shadows in it, okay? Everyone sells these. Z Palette sells them. I have some of my own. I feel like you could literally get any brand. I'm sure you can get off brands on Amazon. You don't need to get this brand. Like I said, I know I keep emphasizing it, but I don't want you to feel like you need to spend the money to get this because you don't. So this one you can fit 6 shadows into. To be honest with you, I think for me, if I had the perfect eyeshadow palette, I would have 2 more shades in here, at least. Maybe 4, but there are 2 that I feel like I am kind of missing because I didn't have the space, that they don't sell one bigger than 6. So there's that caveat there. Now, Z Palette, you can get different sizes. MAC sells their palettes. Like I said, you can get off brands on Amazon. I'll see if I can find any that look kind of promising, that have good reviews, and I'll link it below. I ended up picking, this kind of looks cool tone, doesn't it? And as I was picking these shadows out and swatching them and comparing them, I realized that I really do like cool tones with a slight bit of warmth. So I'll still use warmer browns. So let me walk you through the shades I picked. I'll list the actual name and number of each of these shades down below, but keeping in mind that this isn't a review of these exact shadows. It's really more of an explanation of why I would pick these specific types of shadows for my everyday eye look. And of course, I'm gonna put these on my eyes. So the first one that I knew I had to have in my perfect eyeshadow palette was some sort of matte skin color. So for me, it's more of a beige skin color, but it might be for you a more medium brown that's matte, or a darker brown, whatever it might be. So in this line, it's the M530 if you were just curious. But it's just a standard matte, kind of light beige. And I felt like this was a necessity. I just realized I haven't put an eye primer. I'm throwing on MAC Paint Pot and Soft Ochre. I also like Painterly. This is one of the best eye primers in the market because it really does completely like blank out the area that you're working with. And so it really makes for a perfect canvas for whether you're doing a neutral look like I typically do or a colorful look, it doesn't matter. Soft Ochre is a little bit more yellow toned. Painterly is a bit more pink toned. But like for me, I can use both and they both look just fine. Anyway, so, and the brush I was using was my Pro Airbrush Concealer number 57 from Sephora. So I always start with some kind of matte light color. Now, my favorite affordable one is from Wet n Wild. It is literally $1 or $2 depending on where you can find it. And it's in the shade Brulee, and it is the bomb. I have gone through so many. I'm still going to use it a ton, but for me, I wanted to create this palette, honestly, because I wanted to have a perfect small travel palette. We travel all of the time. We have travel planned, I think, almost every single month for this entire year. Some of it out of the country, some of it within the country. And because of that, I'm like, I need a palette that I can grab and know that really I can do every look I typically do with it. Now, might I pull in a couple of like fun pops of color? Maybe, like a single pigment or something. But I wanted to be able to do my everyday look with it and know that it's foolproof. So that's the kind of shade that no matter what, I would have in my perfect palette. Now, the next shade I know that I always use is some kind of a lighter medium brown. So for you, it might be a darker medium brown based on your skin tone. I picked two. I picked a cool tone one and a warm tone. I feel like nowadays, especially the past year or two, I've opted for more warmer tone ones because honestly, most palettes have a warmer tone one. I feel like it used to be that a cooler tone one was more common, but now most palettes coming out are warmer. But I wanted both because honestly, I was going back in old videos of mine and I was noticing that a lot of my favorite eye looks I've done had a cool tone palette or had a cool tone light brown, if you will, or taupe in the crease. But I'm gonna start with the warm tone one, and this is a shade that I typically will just quickly and sloppily throw into the crease. It's kind of my buffer shade. This is M646 in the Makeup Forever line. Now some other, while I'm kind of talking through this, some other favorite shadows of mine that you can get in single format. MAC shadows are of course great. These Makeup Forever single shadows are $17. That's freaking pricey. Now, the reason I ended up doing it was because you could get the palette itself plus 6 shadows all together for $59, and I thought, okay, would I use this enough given that it's literally 6 shadows that I know I will use? Would I use this enough to make it worth that $59 price tag? And I decided yes. Find other alternatives. You don't have to buy this one. So I also freaking love, and I don't talk about them enough, the Makeup Single Shadows. I own probably 5 or 6 in my Z palette, and I use them all of the time. I'll pull out my Z palette and I've just got a spread of different colors. Karity, the brand Karity, I worked with long ago. They make incredible single shadows. You can find perfect dupes for so many MAC shadows in that, and they are so cheap. So I'll link their website. I'm not affiliated with them or anything like that. A lot of times when I'm in a hurry, this is all I'll do. And I feel like it looks put together. I'll throw a little bit of liner on, a mascara, obviously, and then I'm out the door. But another one, that cool tone, I wanted to use, and I'm gonna use kind of a smaller one, and I'm gonna kind of focus that more in the crease, because if I want just a little bit more definition, that's a shade I can grab, and it is a little bit deeper. This one's M549 in the Makeup Forever line. But I'm just gonna kind of, with a smaller brush, focus that more in the outer corner. I liked this taupe because I felt like I could diffuse it a bit if I wanted, but it also can kind of pack a decent punch for a kind of lighter shade. This is something that if I've gotten ready during the day and I get back and at night we're going back out, I can grab a shade like that or even a deeper brown and put it in the outer corner, and it just adds a little bit more drama, a little bit of definition, but I can quickly do it without completely messing up like my mascara and stuff. It's kind of a quick addition to the eye look. You guys remember when e.l.f. used to sell, oh my freaking goodness, e.l.f. used to sell single shadows, and they were incredible. It was like their essential eyeshadows. I wish they would bring it back. I don't know why they stopped, especially now that they've got so much hype and so many people know about e.l.f. Like everyone I know knows about e.l.f. I wish they'd bring them back, and they had a little 4-pan empty palette you could buy for like $5. It was white. It was actually really well made, and you could stick your 4 shadows in it, and I really, really miss those days. e.l.f., if you are watching, please bring it back. Anyway, I really, really like this. I actually really like these shadows. But again, Makeup Geek's the same quality, MAC's the same quality. Honestly, Karity's the same quality. You can really, you don't have to spend the money. Okay, so the other thing I knew that I use almost every single day and I had to have in my perfect palette would be a lighter shimmer. So I like to put this on, honestly, with my finger, and this is the shade I-514. It's one of their shimmer shades, but I just typically will put it all over the lid, especially focusing on the inner part of it. And I liked that this one didn't have any glitter chunks. It was just a nice finely milled kind of shimmer. This would be a great shade to also wet and put on your inner corner if you wanted brightness there. So I liked that I could also do that. One day I'm gonna make a palette and it's gonna be so much fun. I get reached out to a decent amount, but they're never from brands that I feel like I trust. So I'm kind of waiting for the day, you know? I don't take it lightly. Who does, I guess, but I feel like there are some people that do so many collabs, and I feel like the day that I finally do one, I'm just picky. I guess that's it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mentioned earlier that if I could have 2 more shades that fit in here, it really would be my perfect palette, because I wish I had a dark, deep matte brown. I love to use darker matte browns like I did with that taupe in the outer corner, but I kind of felt like that could work that way, and I didn't feel like I had to have it, and that's why I went with the taupe and not the like deep dark brown. But that is something that I tend to use when it's in palettes a lot. The only other shimmer glitter I had in here was this one. It's called D562. They call it a taupe platinum. It's a shimmer shade, and sorry, it's a glitter shade, so there's definitely glitter in it, but it wasn't super obvious, and I just thought it was so pretty. This is something that sometimes if I'm going out, I'll just put all over the lid, blend it into the crease, and that's all I do for the eyes. Or I will do like I'm gonna show you now, just take a little bit of it and kind of place it, actually I'm gonna do it with my finger just because there's the glitter in it. And I'll just kind of place it where that outer corner shade is meeting the lighter shimmer, just to kind of blend them together. I just think that's such a pretty look, and I liked that this one was a little bit lighter of a deep color, if that makes sense, like a medium. I'm sure I'm not making any sense. I don't know that I love the quality of this shadow though, to be honest with you. When I swatched it in store, it was like amazing, but I feel like, I don't know, like it's not quite as nice as I had hoped it would be. So the only other shade I had in here to make it my perfect palette was this matte black, and I like to use this as a liner, especially when I'm in a hurry. It's so easy to grab a really thin liner brush and just pat it into and wiggle it into your lash line, and it really darkens the area. You can throw mascara on it, all looks pulled together. Other than a deep dark matte brown that I wish I could have added to this, the other thing I would have added is a lighter shade like this ivory one I used on my lid, but more golden tone, because that is another thing I use that if I could have fitted I would have, that I know, again, when it's in a palette I tend to use a lot. So I'm just gonna take this matte black and literally press it into my lash line. And you notice it literally looks like I've put actual eyeliner on my eye. I will say matte, really good matte blacks are really important. I think Wet n Wild, they have a matte black called Panther. I think that's what it's called, and I think it's matte. And I think that's actually pretty good. I do think you have to be careful and tap some off because it can kick powdery black dust everywhere, and then you have it. And for me, like, I typically will do my face makeup first, so I have to be really careful with that one. But this one seems to be working really well. Again, Makeup Geek makes a really nice one. So I'm actually gonna go back into the warmer kind of medium, really light brown, and just kind of blend things together again. I feel like doing that again at the end can really pull it together, can bring back out a little bit of warmth, because I don't mind warmth, obviously, I use it all the time. Actually, I do want to take that light beige. Another way I use that every single day is on my brow bone. And sometimes I'll even take a matte beige like that and kind of mix it with a shimmer like that and put it on there just to add a little bit of glow. But other times I'll just take whatever highlighter I'm using and kind of tap it in that area just to add a slight glow, because I don't like it to be like frosty on my brow bone, but I like to have a little bit of glow there. So I also like to use these medium colors in the middle on my lower lash line. I'm actually gonna grab the warm one, and I'm just gonna kind of lightly pull that on my lower lash line. And this is something I pretty much do every day, even if I'm not gonna put like liner in my waterline, even if I'm not gonna put mascara on my lower lash line, I still typically do this because I just feel like it helps pull the look completely together. So that's the eye look. I'm gonna throw some mascara on and let's talk a little bit more about this topic. I will have, by the way, if you're curious, what I'm wearing on my lips, the mascara I used, and all my face makeup down in the description box, because obviously I didn't talk about it today because it wasn't the subject, but I figured some of you guys might be curious. So let's talk about this topic. I was thinking about it as I was, finishing up my mascara, and I was like, there was something so magical about having a palette where it's completely curated based on exactly what you like, and about using every shadow in it. I feel like we have so many palettes, and even if you only own one palette, and let's say you open that palette and you get ready every morning and there are like 5 or 6 shades in it that you never touch or you very rarely touch. Obviously, there's a place for that in our lives. It's nice to be able to play around with color. It's nice to be able to play around with shades, maybe when you're going out at night or if it's a special occasion. There's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, I have a drawer full of palettes and I love them and I use them all the time. But there is something so nice about having that small curated little palette just for you that you created, that you can use and know that you're gonna get exactly the kind of look you like getting. So some of you guys might have a palette like this, and when you curate it, it's full of color because that's what you like. That's the beauty of it. We all have such different tastes and needs and wants in what we use every day, and it's almost as if I'm not lying to myself. Like, I can look at this and I know to some of you guys, you're like, wow, that is an incredibly boring palette. But I can look at it and be like, this is exactly what I want. Exactly. Now, I will say, I think I might return this shade or see if I can exchange that taupey one, because it wasn't at all what I'd swatched in store. It's very somehow different, and I know I got the exact same one. So I think I might swap it for maybe a more bronzy shimmer instead of a glitter finish. Just FYI, so you know, this might change. But again, that's the beauty of it. I feel like we're in such a culture of more, and, you know, trying the next best thing. But I have a feeling this is going to be one of those palettes that I end up using for years because it is exactly what I want. And when I'm in a hurry, I want to be able to grab something and know it's got it all. I've realized that my favorite palettes I've tried, like the Anastasia Soft Glam and the Anastasia Sultry, I've realized I love those because I use so many of the colors in it. Whereas so many other palettes that I really do like, I feel like I look at it and I'm like, whoa, I'm only going to use 4 shades out of the 12. It's like, well, then once you start doing the math of breaking down, okay, if the palette itself is $45 and I'm only using a third of it, well, what's a third of 45? I'm basically using $15 worth of this $45 palette. And that's when I started thinking, maybe I should create this kind of expensive palette, but at least it's shadows I know I'm going to use the crap out of, you know? So my challenge for you is, if you already own a bunch of single shadows, go through them. Pick out the ones that you feel like are shades and finishes that you use all of the time. Create your own curated palette. Maybe it is 4 shades, maybe it's only 2 shades, maybe it's 10 shades, but whatever that is, create your own. Then go buy, or maybe use one you already have, a magnetic palette that would fit the amount of shades you need. Maybe you've pulled out like 6 shades that are perfect, but you're like, you know what, I always use a matte dark brown. Let me go buy one from my favorite brand. Then pull it all together, put it in a magnetic palette that would be fitting to the amount of shadows you picked out. Then you've got your own little curated palette that's yours. It's yours. And you know it's gonna be useful to you, it will bring you joy, and you know it's also just foolproof. I kind of went into this video today not really knowing where it was gonna go, because I knew I wanted to talk about my ideal perfect eyeshadow palette, and I knew I wanted to just show you my everyday normal look, but I didn't really know where it would go. But I knew I wanted to emphasize that your palette you're gonna open and bring you joy. I've been watching that Tidying Up with Marie Kondo. I read the book a couple years ago. I've done tons of videos of that KonMari method on my channel. I can link, I've done a clothing one, I've done tons of makeup declutters, honestly inspired by her. So I'm really enjoying the Netflix series, but it really, beyond just decluttering, it kind of changes your mindset on things, where when I open this palette, it's bringing me joy because I know I'm gonna use it, it's useful to me, it makes me happy, and that's how I wish I felt when I opened every single palette. I'll stop ranting. I hope this video was helpful to you in some way. Maybe all it did was inspire you to really think about what shadows are like die-hard needs for me. And I don't mean brand of shadow, I mean shades and finishes. So I hope it was helpful to you in some way. Maybe it inspired you, like I mentioned. I hope that you will subscribe if you enjoy this style of video, give it a thumbs up, and I hope you'll come say hi to me on social media. It's JamBeauty89 everywhere. I love interacting with you guys over there on Instagram and Twitter especially. And other than that, I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye.